Hello and welcome to the 30-minute podcast. Today we are joined by Brad Bailey, who is a former U.S. Navy SEAL. First of all, happy late birthday
Thank you, sir.
and happy Veterans Day.
Thank you very much.
My first question for you is, so you were a New London graduate at New London High School,
Yes, sir.
class of 1990. What were some of your favorite memories growing up and going to school here?
Favorite memory is probably, being a part of a small town. Love sports, I think a lot like you guys do, and just really enjoyed the people. Like it's a very small town here, and miss it a lot. I spent a lot of time trying to get away from it, and now I'm trying to get back to it.
Yeah, I do. That's what I like about living in a small town. You don't have to worry about going to big places.
Sure.
You know everyone here.
Right.
You know everyone's nice. My first question about the Navy was, what made you want to join the Navy?
So I had a very specific goal. I had wanted to be a SEAL for a long time, and I actually met a SEAL when I was in college up at UNI. And I left UNI with about a year to go and joined the Navy, and kind of the rest is history, as they say, right?
Specifically, what is a SEAL?
So SEAL is Sea, Air, and Land. Okay, it's, started by Kennedy. He realized the need to have more nimble elite fighting force, that could combat terrorism. And so we basically, initially worked out of the water, and now as you can see in some of the most recent wars, they work just about everywhere.
Right. What was it like in the Navy?
So the Navy was, initially pretty boring for me. I went in and boot camp to me was super boring. It was just a pathway to get where I wanted to be. And but you know what? Here was the great thing about the Navy is you meet so many different people, different races and cultures, and you're all kind of thrown into this big room to sleep. Like 100 dudes in this room sleeping with you, and you got to deal with a lot of stuff. You have to really learn to be patient, be accepting and giving.
Right.
So the Navy teaches you a lot, not just about being a sailor, right, but being a good person.
Right. What was the training like there?
The training in boot camp bored me out of my skull. I was in pretty good shape. I ran Division I track, and rode my bike all the time and ran, and so I showed up at boot camp in really good shape. And actually, I think I got in worse shape at boot camp than I was, before I came into the Navy. But it was there that I took my PRT test for the SEAL teams. I was really lucky in the fact that I got to go to Puerto Rico to one of our debts and spend about, I think we spent about 3.5, 4 months there getting ready for BUDS.
Right.
And then BUDS was like a kick in the face from day one.
Obviously, if you talk about SEALs, you talk about Hell Week.
Sure.
How many people went in with you?
Right. So that number is a little bit skewed because if you really look at the number, they say, the attrition rate's, pretty high. It's 80% of the people don't make it, right? And in reality, if you look at the people that go through, and that's probably a PR thing, right? They don't want everybody to think that only 1 or 2% can make it through, but in reality, the number of people that start with boot camp, we had a pre-training class, right, of almost 1,000 people, and we classed up with 200. Wow. Just a little bit south of 200 probably. My BUDS class graduated, I think 34 people after Hell Week got through. We graduated, I want to say 51. I got rolled back a class. I had pneumonia and had a pretty bad double ankle sprain. So, but yeah, I had to get rolled back, and that stunk. But the great thing was being rolled back. I was with those guys, and then I was with another group of guys that were equally as badass, right? So every time there was a setback, you got to meet new people, and you saw different walks of life, and just a fantastic experience all overall.
So obviously, you think about Hell Week, and everyone says it's horrible. What would you say the hardest part about that was?
The hardest part about Hell Week is actually getting through Hell Week and then going to a team, because it's harder at the team. But in reality, I think what gets a lot of people is the cold. You
Yeah.
think you're in San Diego, Southern California, it's beautiful, and you're running by Hotel Del Coronado every day, and it's sun's out. And we went through Hell Week in the wintertime, and the water temperature, 46, 47 degrees, and you
Right.
sit in that long enough, and it changes the way you think about everything,
Right.
right? So
So obviously the seal is water. What were some of the toughest swim challenges you had there?
swim challenges. Well, you know what? One of the coolest ones I did. I swam from Vieques to Puerto Rico before I even went to Bud. So, I got in really good swimming shape. That was an amazing swim. Literally took me half the day, to get back. But the swims were pretty basic. I mean, we had a lot of stuff in the pool to get us ready for the
Right.
ocean. And then our daily swim was like a 2 mile out to a buoy,
Yeah.
a mile out buoy and back. That was timed, and so you had to beat your time every time.
What about like the hold your breath challenge?
Sure.
Sure you have to like hold your breath for.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit, yeah. So pool comp, that's something where, well, actually, I would say in first phase, we had 3 phases back then. First phase, you did underwater knot tying in a 50-foot tower. So you dive down to the bottom of the tower, tie some knots, and come back up. That was challenging for a lot of guys. Pool comp is really, I don't know how to really explain it. It's like maybe wrestling underwater where the instructors are trying to make sure that you're competent and you're not going
Yeah.
to freak out. So they wreck you. I mean, you go underwater, and at that time we were doing open circuit scuba, and they rip all your gear off, and you have to put it back on. And while you're putting it back on, they're trying to rip it off again. So it was definitely challenging. There's a lot of breath holding involved, and just being comfortable in the water. I was really lucky in the fact that I didn't really, the water didn't bother me. I loved it. I don't know how. I grew up in middle Iowa, but it was phenomenal. It was that was probably the most challenging phase for me. But it's the one where I think I learned the most.
So obviously, as you said earlier, seal is land, water, and air.
Sure.
So you have to jump out of airplanes with parachutes. How was that like?
That was pretty fun. That's we got to do that for free, right? So many different phases of jumping. I mean, you can do high altitude. Majority of my stuff was jumping out of a C-130 static line with boats. So
Right.
we called that a wet duck. So the boat would go out first, platoon would go out after, and we'd chase down the boat and hop in the boat and motor on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say was the hardest part about your training? Was it the physical side or your mental side?
Definitely the mental, and it changed. It changed in Buds from being an individual to being a team, and then more so when I actually got to a team. I went to SEAL Team 1, fantastic team, a lot of great mentors there, and what changed there was I was responsible for other people, right? So I was in charge of when we were diving, making sure people got to the right spot, and when we did demo, making sure that everybody was safe and we did everything correctly. So it changed and progressed, as my career, grew longer, and it was mostly the responsibility that you take on.
Right.
So.
So you're involved with the Frogman MC, I believe.
Sure I am.
What is that?
All right. So the Frogman Motorcycle Club is we're a non-territorial motorcycle club that we saw a need to make sure that our community kept getting together, right? And people talk about the things that are happening with veterans right now, and one of the biggest issues are detachment and suicide and a lot of the things that are going along with that. And so for a long time, a lot of veterans went to the VA and they would get diagnosed with PTSD or TBI, and they'd walk out with 10 or 12 pill bottles, and
Right.
really didn't help them that much, right?
Right.
So one of the things, and I was not one of the founders, but I came on shortly thereafter, and what veterans are seeing these days is that veterans need to be around other veterans, right? So one of our big causes, the club rides all over. We have events all over the country. We go to a lot of rallies, and I think the most important thing is we are together. Like that's one of the most important things. So it's expanded a little bit. The club's growing exponentially, and we've started another charity kind of on the side called Forever Frogmen. And Forever Frogmen is brilliant. It's some guys that got together and decided, same thing. We got to get people together, but how do we resolve issues? Okay, because you can get together and talk all day and drink beer and have fun, but if you're not resolving people's issues, what is the point, right? So, a couple guys in our club, Dave Ferrulo and Carlos Flanagan, both actual doctors, right? SEALs and doctors, both psychologists. They're developing a mentor program and a counseling program nationwide, so that when we do have these gatherings, we have people there that can recognize problems with guys, and at the same time we're building this network of organizations that help veterans, and what we're I've been involved in charity work with, in particular with SEALs for 7 years now, and I think the most stark thing that I have realized is not one thing works for every person, right? So you have to find either one thing or a combination of things that helps people get through their issues, whether it's PTSD or TBI is very physical. It's a bruising and damaging of the brain, and that's a whole totally different medical field, right, that deals with that. So it's really having the people with the intelligence and the wherewithal, and also the ability to extract information from people that don't like to talk to about things like that, right? It's very uncomfortable to talk about. So, in the process of building this network of people that can help, is where do we send them once we know what the issue is? And we're growing that all over the country right now. We've got a guy named Danny Cirillo who runs American Addiction Center out in Nashville, phenomenal part of our community. We've got people down in Mexico that run a psychedelics program, and it's actually psychedelic mushrooms that help kind of reprogram the brain, right? And it's a natural substance, not approved by FDA, but it is. I've not seen anybody go to that program that didn't come back a different person, more level-headed, was able to walk away from addictions, right? And then there are things like in Virginia Beach. We've got a program out there where people are getting just physically back into a good state where they can think better, right? So there's all kinds of programs out there. There's thousands of military veterans charities, and we're kind of trying to just be a conduit. One of the big things that was missing in all these charities was, are people going to come get help? Because it's a really hard thing to ask for, right? Especially when you're a SEAL and you've been your whole life. People have talked about your accolades and how tough you guys are, and then how do you talk about wanting to commit suicide, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how many people do you have in the Frogmen?
That's club business, buddy.
Yeah.
It is.
So I heard you have a big ride coming up soon.
We do. Yes. So we have this super cool giveaway going on right now. We have some friends over at Moonshine Harley Davidson, Nashville, Tennessee, and these guys build incredible Harley Davidson motorcycles.
Is that where that's the center of the Frogmen is?
So they're building us a performance bagger. It's a 2021 Road Glide, kind of like mine. Yeah. But it's super fast. It's super cool. So these guys are they built us a bike. We're raffling that off right now to raise money for the charity. And part of this is we are starting. We had one of our presidents of the Frogman Motorcycle Club was a guy named Mike Martin. Guy did 6 tours in Vietnam. Just an incredible guy. He actually passed away several years ago. But one thing that Mike did that was amazing to me is every single year he rode from San Diego out to Arlington National Cemetery in D.C.
Wow.
On his motorcycle, and toward the end, he's getting kind of older, but he just powered through it. It was amazing. Yeah. And so we're going to commemorate that ride. So we're going to, all of us, and we're not 100% sure everybody that's going, but a large group of people are going to start in San Diego. People that can maybe relay with us or ride part of the way with us, but we're all going to ride from San Diego to Arlington to memorialize all of our friends and troops and everybody around that. So we're pretty excited about that. We're going to do some stops along the way, sell some more raffle tickets, and hopefully you guys will be able to see us on the ride. That'd be great.
Are you planning on to go the whole way?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yeah, I wouldn't miss it. I wouldn't miss it.
No? How has the time in your SEAL shaped how? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
How has the time in your SEAL shaped the way you lived your life?
Sure. So, SEAL teams taught me a lot about integrity, right? And so, when you're in the SEAL teams, there's really no room for people to be ambiguous or be untruthful, because that leads to people getting hurt. It leads to people not trusting each other.
Sure.
And when you're shooting over someone, or you're the guy behind him jumping out of an airplane, or you're the guy that's responsible for getting into a submarine, underwater. There's a lot of trust involved in that, right? So that's how I try to live my life. I don't want to leave anything on the table. I manage teams of people right now. We're very forthcoming with each other, and I think me coming into a civilian company where they're not really used to things like that was kind of a breath of fresh air, and it was difficult for them to kind of swallow it at first, but I'm very direct, and I'm very honest with people. Like, if you're not performing well, we talk about it, and it's not about why, it's how do we fix it. I really don't care if you're performing poorly if you want to get better at it, right? So we have conversations on, part of the coaching with any of the teams that I lead is how are we going to get better every single day.
Right.
And that's one of the things I took for the teams that I think has really shaped my life, not only, for me personally, but, the teams that I've tried to lead out in the civilian world.
So do you wish that you learned that earlier in your life, or you?
I was pretty young when I learned that.
You are.
Yeah, I was pretty young when I went in, and I wasn't certainly one of the youngest people, but I was in my very early 20s. The only regret I have about the SEAL teams is not being able to do it for my whole career. I got hurt pretty early in my career, and had to get out. Tried to come back in, right after 9/11. That didn't work out. But yeah, that's my only regret from SEAL teams, not being able to do it longer. And incidentally, I don't know if you guys know this, but Shane Arnold, he was actually another graduate of New London High School, was a grade below me, and I believe he graduated in class 197. I graduated in 200. Yeah. So two people from this high school made it through the SEAL team. So I haven't figured the odds up on that, but that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Did you ever meet him there at maybe training or anything?
He was one of the first people I saw at Buds, and incidentally, neither one of us knew the other were coming to Buds. We just ran into each other. Right. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you said you got injured. How did you get injured?
Sure. So I tore my foot up pretty bad in a parachuting accident. So I've had 7 surgeries on that. I think it's right now I had a total ankle replacement by a doctor named Sam Adams. I swear to God, that's his real name. But he's this brilliant doctor out of Duke University. I ran into him through coincidence. And he transplanted pretty much my tendon, ligament, cartilage, new talus into my left foot, and it's been life changing. Thank the Lord there are people like that out there, helping veterans, and he's working for the VA, but it was life changing. And I've sent 2 or 3 people to him since then, and same experience. We've had great success in fixing things that happened to us back then. So.
And do you think that there was plenty of other people that got injured there, or?
Oh yeah, I mean it's and that's the thing about the work that we did in particular. It's very, very hard on your body, and guys that did it, they say 2, 3, 4 platoons, and you can probably get out of it.
Yeah. With
minor issues, but. That's really not the case. I mean, it's very hard on your body, jumping, shooting, running all the time. And then you look at the guys that did 7, 8, 9, 10 platoons, and they're in pretty bad shape. So, and I hear a lot, especially during Veterans Day, thank you for your service, right? And what I tell people is it's my pleasure. I would do it all over again in a second. But if you really want to thank a veteran, go out and do something that's going to benefit, one of these guys that really served and has been put in a place where, they're not at 100% right now, right?
Right. So. Do you plan on joining maybe VFWs?
No, not the VFW. I'm really happy where I'm at, man. My time is, I spend a lot of time at work. I love the VFW. I think it's a great organization. But my time really is better spent doing what I'm doing right now.
Right.
The Frogman Motorcycle Club and Forever Frogman takes up a lot of time. But it's time that I cherish and I'm very passionate about. And, quite honestly, the guys in that club, they're like my brothers. I love them and they love me. And it's funny also when you go to any veteran event and you hear, the L word being, thrown around like, I love you, man. And it's true. It's true because there's a bond there, I think kind of like a brother. It's a little bit different, but it's, it's like being a brother.
Right. And you mentioned earlier that you submarines.
I rode a couple submarines.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Right.
Those guys, more power to them. I don't think I could do it. I rode them, a couple of them for 2 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it's very quiet. So you have to be quiet on it. And it was an amazing experience being on a, billion-dollar warship that was carrying ballistic missiles, right? So pretty cool stuff. And my hat's off to those guys. They do a great job. And part of that other, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but everybody has their job, in the military, and I don't diminish anything that's out there. There's things so integral to, what happened in the teams and other fighting forces that, you don't really see, but those support teams, they're phenomenal to everything. They're phenomenal to us, and they're really integral to everything that we do.
So you said you got placed in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I was in Puerto Rico as a program to try and get more guys through the teams.
Yeah.
It's a very taxing program, and the attrition rate's really high, and they were trying to get more people through, and it didn't work. We had the same amount of people. I think we had about a dozen people that went, and only 3 people, actually 2 of that group made it through. So, kind of the same attrition rate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I'll tell you what I will say about Puerto Rico is I met some legendary SEALs down there.
Yeah.
That's kind of where they come down to, toward the end of the career. Bodies beat up, they need to kind of recoup a little bit. And I met some incredible mentors there. And the island of Puerto Rico is just stunning. That base has been closed since then, but yeah, what a great experience.
And you said going to New London, or a while back, you said going to New London.
It wasn't that far back, was it?
You said it was really fun playing sports there.
Sure.
And you said you ran track.
Yeah.
You went to state and track?
My team won a few titles in track. Yeah.
What races did you run?
I ran the 100 and the 200. If I would have listened to my college track coach, I would have run the 800, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great experience. That was, a small town. We were running on cinders back then, on a cinder block track. So, but I'm so impressed with the facilities here and the community for really coming around the sports. I can tell New London is a place where a lot of people want to go, and I'm just proud of this town. What a great accomplishment with state football and nearly winning a few titles. Cross country track.
Right.
Just really proud of this town and the people that have come around to build this school up, and the community is amazing.
Yeah. I think that's what I like a lot about New London is the community.
Yeah.
Just everyone right here close.
That's absolutely true.
Oh, excuse me. So you said the swim challenges earlier or later.
Sure.
They were probably the most difficult part of your training?
You know what? I will say that at different phases in training, different things were more difficult for me, as an individual.
Right.
What a lot of people understand is when you do a swim, you have a swim buddy, right? And you can't lose them. Right. So you have to stay within 6 feet of each other. And if you don't, then you get punished by the instructor. So if you have a slower swim buddy, you might not make your time. And when you get done and you haven't made a better time, then you're going to get punished again.
Right.
So yeah, it was different things. There was times where, I was hurt and, I kind of messed up my shoulder once. It was hard to do pull-ups, but you had to do pull-ups, right? And then later on in training, you're doing pull-ups with all your gear.
Right.
And then, a little bit further down in training, you got all your equipment plus your gear, right?
Right.
So different stages, different challenges.
Right. And you said like the mental, it was
Hmm.
harder than the physical. What?
I wouldn't say harder. I think the people that had the mindset that I'm not going to quit. If you don't have that mental mindset, you lose every single day. And those
Right.
were the guys that anytime I saw someone that had doubt, they were gone shortly thereafter. People that were questioning me like, hey, how you doing? And do you think you're going to make it? People
Yeah.
ask me that all the time. I was like, of course I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
Are you going to make it? So, I don't know. And next day they're gone. So,
Right.
a lot of that is mindset. The mental part of it is, for me, and I can relate this, you ask about the civilian life and what translated, right? I can do anything for an hour, right?
Right.
So when I have a tough work task, that's something where I tell myself, hey, this is something I have to do for the next hour, and when I'm done with it, it's done,
Right.
right? So having that mindset, coming from the teams, really helped me in the civilian world as well.
And you said when you got injured,
Mm-hmm.
you were parachuting accident. Did you like land hard or?
Yeah, I was in fins, and I kind of caught an edge of my fin and ripped my left ankle back, my heel back, kind of
Yeah.
on the back of my leg. So, we didn't really realize I was actually in one of our territories,
Right.
Guam, and I went to the hospital and basically diagnosed with a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
And then got back to the States and found out it was much more severe than that,
Right.
and literally was in surgery about 2 hours later. So.
And you said you were in Guam. What did you do there?
So Guam is another det. That's it's a detachment where we operate in Southeast Asia out of Guam. Very strategic. If you ever get a chance to read about Guam and the Aleutian, or I'm sorry, the Aleutians, the Marianas Trench and everything that happened in the Pacific during World War II, the history is absolutely amazing.
Right.
We were able to dive in Guam on some old Japanese and American aircraft carriers that are
Right.
still there. But the history there is amazing. And we operated from Guam in, I think, 9 or 10 different countries in Asia.
Right.
But it's basically a kind of a landing pad, right? You hole up there, and then you travel to different countries from Guam. So.
Right.
But people give Guam a bad rap, but it was amazing to me. I
Right.
got to spearfish and surf, and we had a lot of fun there.
Yeah. And you said, oh, dang, we're to finish. Thank you for tuning into the New London podcast. See you.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.